Carbonneau, author of At the Trough, The Rise and Rise of Canada's Corporate Welfare Bums. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. So just give us your thesis. You are in the camp that when governments try to prop up industries they see as offering bright prospects, they too often get it wrong?
I would say, we do seem to be a bit of an outlier in just how bad we are at this. And I think, if you look around the world, there are examples of this being done fairly well. But Canada, unfortunately, is not part of that club. And then perhaps, optimistically, I can say, is not part of that club yet. Looking back over 150 years and change of Canadian history, the Confederation is prompted very much by something very similar to what we're experiencing now: high American tariffs, threats of annexation, and we responded to that with both Confederation and an attempt to both build a railway across the country at great public expense and to protect Canadian industries, both of which ended up with a bit of a mixed track record. Certainly, we paid probably an excessive premium to build a railroad as fast as we did, and the national policy tariffs left us with a very unbalanced and precarious industrial sector that was not very innovative and was predominantly American controlled.
The latest round of subsidies, of course, has come from the current government, handing out money to green energy players, notably that Swedish-based battery company that immediately seemed to run into financial trouble.
Yes, so over the life of the Trudeau government, I did some digging on this. The last year of the Harper government, the federal government spent about $14 billion on federal subsidies to business. This last year of the Trudeau government, they managed to spend, I believe, just around 30-odd billion. That number actually gets quite a bit higher if you include some of the green subsidies, up to 40 billion, which is over $1,000 for every man, woman, and child in Canada. So indeed, this government has embraced subsidies to business, but we really don't have the track record to show for it. If you look at key economic indicators like productivity, GDP per capita, we're really stagnating compared to other countries, and especially other rich world countries. During the recovery after the pandemic, certainly we were lagging very far behind the United States, as they had a very strong recovery, and we really did not. So I think for all of the money we spend, we should certainly be asking if we're getting the results we're paying for.
The defining subsidies can be different. For example, would you include something like the ability to write off investments in plant and equipment as a subsidy?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely a subsidy. And I think over Canada's history, most of our subsidies have happened through the tax code, and that's very much how we got started. So it is a subsidy. And I think, accelerated depreciation can certainly, once again, like these tools have a time and a place. It's a very, to me, sort of entertaining and illuminating fact that after the Second World War, we continued this, on a very gentlemanly basis. Reconstruction related to the Second World War continued well through 1949 for the purposes of the tax code. And of course, we didn't have, German bombers pulverizing our industrial stock as happened in Britain and other countries. So perhaps a little hard to justify on the kind of security and reconstruction grounds that other countries had. But it turned into a long-standing and still very, very prevalent tool of industrial policy in Canada.
Although, I mean, just about every country, I'm assuming, I haven't checked out the tax codes, but I'm assuming every country gives some kind of relief when you invest in capital equipment. So I wouldn't know if Canada would be an outlier there.
No, we're not. We're not there, certainly. I don't think it's exceptional that we do it. It's just that it was introduced amid circumstances that I think didn't really resemble perhaps what people thought they were, in terms of, we were using Britain specifically as the kind of template. And of course, very, very different Second World War fought in this country and theirs.
Interestingly, you think Quebec does some things right, and they have a big pension fund, the case to Depot, and it does favor Quebec-based companies. But of course, we keep hearing, the wizards who run our big pension funds, we can never tell them how they would direct their money.
No, and the case is an interesting model, and certainly I think when you start getting into hard mandates, it gets a little tricky, and of course you have to balance competing interests there. I think what Quebec has done that's interesting, and this has not always been the case, is they've really set themselves a very straightforward, but of course hard challenge of trying to get to Ontario's level of GDP per capita and productivity. And they've managed to actually make pretty sizable inroads since 2018 on that front. So it's fairly impressive. And I think what makes them interesting is they take a bit more of a active approach to industrial policy that isn't just, grants and subsidies. It's building the kinds of intermediate institutions that give government and business line of sight into each other and sort of make them more mutually intelligible. And I think this is what you see in a lot of the Nordic countries, where you see a bit more of a cooperative approach between government, business, and labor working together towards development. I think that's had a pretty good track record in a lot of places, not everywhere, but it's certainly, I think, an approach that hasn't been widely done in Canada and would be something we would like to see more movement towards.
I'm trying to think. I mean, a lot of countries, though, do this. I'm not saying, oh, it's justified because everybody does it. But would you be putting us at a competitive disadvantage? I mean, for example, China has had a very successful policy of planning to dominate in industries for decades.
Yes. So the beauty of China and the US is that they're enormous economies, right? And they have, I think, a lot more just firepower to throw at these problems. Of course, China's entry into solar energy and electric cars and shipbuilding, for that matter, has been driven by, entry subsidies, where they're basically just paying people to get started. And then as firms mature, they sort of force them to consolidate. We couldn't really do that. We just don't have the kinds of resources. So we need to just be much more careful and scrappy about the kinds of things we design in this space, and really the kind of broad, the famous parable we always use in Ottawa here is, spreading the peanut butter too thin. And that's very much what we've always tried to do, tried to satisfy, a lot of political constituencies, short-term electoral concerns. And that approach just has never worked. And I really feel pretty comfortable saying it never will work. And if it does, I suppose I'll be happy to be wrong, because that's very much what we do. But I really rate the prospects of long-term success trying to do that as very, very low.
And we're out of time, but one important point you raise as well is we don't really get an accounting, do we? We hear, $100 million went to this company, but we don't get a full and clear accounting of what was the money paid back, etc. Was it just poured down a hole? But Laurent, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Laurent Carbonneau, author of